a really long time. I guess I didn't play it yesterday. I can't read past 9.5, but this is a 9.7 that feels a little bit less complex, you know, for me to warm up on. Been learning stream since... Oh... The problem is some days I can stream, then other days I struggle holding my technique. I see. So you're doing... Yeah, so I would have to say, when it comes to that type of thing, do you feel like it's normal? Do you have any reason to believe it's not? It's probably a better phrasing. I don't know if you started tracking what you do around the day. So let me get to your first question first. When I warm up for streams, none of these maps have streams, but if I were to warm up with streams, yeah, that's a really good question. You want, I guess it depends on, one of the big factors is how long your warm-up is, right? So my stamina, my endurance for the day, for stream practice, it's like 4 hours. Like, I like to keep it within 4 hours, maybe 3 hours. So warm-up would be 30 minutes. And the warm-up tends to be, if you can capture the moments, in my opinion, this is what I would do for warm-ups. When you're like running, or when you're, you know, doing push-ups or getting ready for your overload, workout, warm-up tends to be, you stop warm-up the moment you have your mind-body connection hit where you want it to hit. So what I'm saying is, you have to decide arbitrarily when this is. It's just from experience by recording. But for me, for streaming, if my goal, if my intent is to play, I don't know, say a map that's 200 BPM, the warm-up would start at somewhere that can make a mind-body connection. So I'll just start from the beginning and be as efficient as possible. 120. If I can hold it for 5 seconds, I stop. Give it 5 or 6 seconds. Just breathe. It's a thing that happens with how the mind works. If you pause for 9 or 10 seconds, it gives your body tends to be replaying that. This is more of a neurological thing, what we know about learned behavior. But when you make a mind-body connection, you arbitrarily decide when you hit the technique, and you stop when you hit the technique. Give it a couple seconds, like I usually 10 is a good second. Sit there, think about it, move to 140, 160, 180, whatever steps you decide. Hit 200, and if you can nail the mind-body connection, you stop. You breathe, take it in, and then go for it. Just hit the net, and then start your training routine. And then that's when you can focus on your overload and your progressive things. But the idea is the foundation of warm-up in general, when it comes to a physical aptitude, is consistency in matching your body with your mind, right? So the idea is you only want to remember the moment it clicks, and then just pause. Your brain is still, like, for me, like, I'm not a neurologist, but what I understand about neurology is that when you make an active intent to look for something, and once it clicks and you sit down and consolidate, usually sleeping and napping is the way to go, but you know, you want to play longer, right? So you pause, take the 10 seconds, and your cognitive side is still replaying that moment for a bit, actually, for quite a long time. But you can utilize that short period. So what you do is you take a warm-up. That's why when people tell you like, oh, get warmed up for running, what you do is you run, like literally do the run, feel good about it, like connect, pause, wait for a couple seconds. You know, you rest 30 seconds, then you go into your workout. So the idea of warm up to make it more efficient over time is every single time you go to warm up into an activity, you're either lengthening because it's not good enough, or you're shortening the time period. And what you're doing is you're constantly making a mind-body connection with the thing, and then letting your body process it. Your mind, typically, it's an autonomic response most of the time, but you play it back in your head, you know, like, got it. It won't work immediately. In my opinion, this is a very effective and efficient way to tune personally, so you can do it in your pace or it's specifically your pace. You have to record keep this in mind, because some people it takes 20 seconds, 30 seconds. The idea is you're building a habit, and it'll be almost automatic by the time you do this for 6 months down to a year, and you can apply this to most physical activities. And it's a low barrier. So the idea is you have to get to the point where you understand when you can stop. Like in a warm-up, it's like, I'm warmed up. You know, so and then you go. So for me, today, these maps that I have to do a play on, I have reading limit issues. So the only thing I'm doing is I'm intentionally seeing if I can warm up to the reading that's above where I am, and then I'll normalize. So it'll only take like 1 or 2 runs and I'm good to go. Oh, well, I mean, Sun does too. And I can tell you, Sun's warm-ups are like 2 hours to 3 hours long. So, the only thing that probably me and him differ is our technique. Our mindsets are different. Sun's approach is he's thinking about a session that is 8 hours plus, right? I'm thinking of a session that's like 2 hours plus. So my warm-up period has to proportionally reflect that. Otherwise, I would not have like enough time. And but yeah, Sun, if you ever want to meet someone whose main skill set, like legitimately, his skill set for stream and metronomic consistency is unreal, in my opinion. It's so unreal in a way that what I mean is he has been training and practicing without the experience of training and practicing. And what I mean is, what the stuff that I'm saying, I'm doing out of compensation. Like, I'm 30 plus years old. I've developed a lot of strategies that help me compensate for being not that much stamina anymore. Like, I'm growing older, so I'm mitigating the loss in stamina. Sun is peaking, and he has basically, up to this point, got to his point by brute forcing training stamina. Like, he is vigorously training. He's not doing what I'm doing, where I'm trying to make it more efficient, for a really long time. So if you're ever wondering what he does, just give him a peek of how often he plays. Like, he streams for 4+ hours on a level that is almost top 500. He's almost there. He's just got to play today. I put him at 505. The majority of his plays are stream maps, like 95%. 95%, I would say, of his maps are like some HD HR stream map thing, but he started all with capping out on no mod streams. And then the way to boost that is, you know, in mods. But now he's in like the mod arc. Yeah, so back to the if it's normal or not. That fluctuation, at least from my understanding of Osu, like spectating Osu, that fluctuation is very acceptable. If I were to offer some realistic commentary, flowing between 190 and 220 is very acceptable. It's not I wouldn't say having, you have to, in my opinion, it's very healthy for a person to view their aptitude in a range, not in an optimal average. So whenever you're comparing to an average, you would say like, you're usually okay around 200, 210, but then days, you know, you have a range of competence, and being aware of that or being accepting of that can help you feel motivated and stay positive or like continue to play, right? If you feel like you're doing below average and it means it's a regression, I don't think that's very to not dip or excel above an average is a unhealthy way of looking at motivating oneself's progress, in my opinion. It's not sustainable. So I don't even care about going up to 220 every day. The thing is, I want to grind. Yeah, that's fair. I can't are you grinding because what are your motivations for grinding stamina? One thing I can tell you that probably translates to hands. I'm not sure if it does translate to hands because like there aren't actual studies that ask someone to constantly tap back and forth, right? So the idea is this is from physical training. This is from any physical training. So likely it does translate to the hand. Likely. But no direct evidence, okay? When a physical body, when you're doing a mechanic, and the mechanic has to excel past your comfort point, right? You are building an overload. You would have to build an overload in order to sustain a faster mechanic or like a higher property of the mechanic. Endurance and stamina training it's not completely exclusive of overloading, but endurance and stamina tends to have a trade-off compromise with speed. Is technically a form of strength training, loosely. So strength and endurance tend to be somewhat antagonistic to each other on the intent of training. So for example, let's just take a sprinter and a long distance runner. You have to make a compromise in programming. You can bounce every day, but like every other day, but to train speed or like to sprint faster, that's technically a strength or burst type mechanic. And what happens is you have to excel past the points temporarily and then rest. So you need a form of progressive overload to extend your speed. Stamina endurance training is about volume holds. So how much volume you can put out consistently. So if you're grinding stamina, hoping to build speed, it sounds like you're grinding. It sounds like you're building endurance. You're not necessarily building speed. Speed is more like do sprints. Sprint, reach a top speed beyond your current speed, stop, rest. and doing that. And then when you reach a new top speed, it normalizes your slower speed. So once you sprint, say like, we'll just use BPMs as sprinting. When you overload, you sprint 190, you're good, warmed up. 200, good, warmed up, like you're building up, right? 210, and then at the peak of your workout, you reach 220. But generally you want to overload. So if you're already good to 220, you do 230. But 230 is going to feel like a train wreck. But the idea is you need progressive overload in order to raise your max, and then your min, the lower range, will become consistently mechanically more reliable. When you're building endurance, is the repetition, so it's more dependent on the volume you're doing. So if you want to be consistent at 190 for a very long time, like you can do 190 for a very long time, you can just keep doing 190 very long time. But if you want to be consistent at 190, but 190 is not consistent, you do 200 and try to hold that for volume, and then it trickles down. So the idea is, if you're building speed, you need some sort of progressive overload past your comfort zone. It's part of strength training and stuff. So like if you're doing if you want to lift more weights, right? So if you want to do 50, you have to do 60 at some point, even one rep. And you can bumble it, but as long as you're being safe and reproducing the rep properly, you're good to go. That's to me, what you just described is the fun part about training and creating a program. You record things, you know, like you record things. Warming up can be a way to remind you where you are today. I warm up, I don't particularly like the phrase warm up too much. I think I would call it exercise prep, the pre-workout prep. Because pre-workout prep can be used as a program, as a mental preparedness for the actual task, right? So for me, when I warm up, I'm actually doing up to where I think I am, and then if my warm-up like breaks down, then I normalize it for that day. So if my warm-up is like, I want to get up to 220, but I hit 200, I'm like, not feeling it. So I'll lower my workout to 210 and try to push on a peak side to 220, 230 momentarily. But the idea is that when you're building something that's beyond your body's capacity, you have to touch something beyond it, and then it will normalize down. Generally speaking, that's like the theory behind physical workouts. It's the idea of progressive overload. You have to progressively overload. So for me, I've used this for warm-up now, but this is overloading. For my reading, I'm treating my eyes the same way. So if this is not comfortable, anything below it is comfortable, which is the idea. And you just get faster and faster at doing it. I don't know if any of that is inspirational, but writing down stuff is like the